we come back. We are here again. We will present now Juanita Gomez talk. She will give a sponsored talk in part of Spyder with the name Accelerating Your Research Workflow. So we welcome Juanita, please. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, is it good?
Yes, good. Go ahead,
okay,
thank you.
Great. So I'm gonna introduce myself first. I'm Juanita Gomez. I work for QuantSight and I'm currently working as a core developer for the Spyder team. And today what I wanted to show you is basically how do I use the Spyder to accelerate my research workflow. I am a mathematician and the first time that I used Spyder was when I was doing my undergrad thesis. And I found it really helpful for improving my workflow. So that's what I want to share with you today. But the first time that I want us to do is to take this small poll. So it's just basically to know what kind of editors or IDEs you use in general. I'm going to send the link of the poll in the chat, but you can scan it with your phone, and I can't send it in the chat, I think. Okay, then just you can scan it with your phone and just answer the question there. So let's just take 1 minute to do that, and I'll check the results. Okay, there's 11 votes by now. If you use two, feel free to check on the favorite or the one that you use the most. Okay, let's just give 30 more seconds and then I'll start my presentation. "26 people voting. Okay, let's check. Here I have the results. So, wow, I'm actually impressed that the most common was none. So it seems like a lot of people don't use an IDE or an editor. So I'm going to show you why maybe you should consider using one. So the first thing that I want to do is tell you what is an IDE for me. So people usually know IDEs as tools that are going to just help you improve the way you code and make it faster or easier. But I want to go a little bit deeper. So I'm going to start by the IDE acronym, word by word, just to kind of understand what it actually means. So the first thing is an IDE, the first word is integrated. So for me, integrated means that it is a platform that is going to allow you to have a lot of tools inside of it, and you can interact with them to accomplish a goal. So you have a lot of tools in the same place that you can use together to code and like do a lot of things while coding. So that's what integrated means for me. The second word is development. So As I said, I am a mathematician and I don't really use coding for the sake of coding. When I code, I do it for doing some data analysis or doing some development. And I think that's what the development word in the IDE acronym means. It means that usually scientific programming is a means to an end. You are not coding for the sake of coding. You are coding because you want to accomplish something. You want to do development. You want to do, you want to do scientific research and develop software or knowledge around the coding. And the third word is environment. So for me, having an IDE means that I have my own workspace where I have all the tools necessary to write code and do research using my code. I can customize it. I can include some other tools. So that's why environment means in this acronym for me. And at the end of the day, what these three things are going to allow me is to improve my workflow. Why? Because I guess the fact of having everything in one only workspace, all the tools that I need, it's going to allow me not to stop and have to go and look for more tools or use different things, different programs, different platforms. I have everything in only one place that I can customize and have as my workspace. So what I'm going to do now is show you some small tasks. I don't really have much time, so I want to go with really simple tasks that you can accomplish using an IDE. But what I'm going to show you is how would I do them if I didn't have an IDE, and how do I actually do them? Oh, sorry. How do I actually do them with an IDE as a Spyder? So the first thing is, how do you run only a portion of your code? So let's go to my editor. So this is a file of a workshop that I did. And let's assume that I'm reading my workshop, and what I want to do is just maybe understand what it is about and kind of learn about the weather history in the past years and do some analysis. So let's assume that I only want to run first maybe the imports, because I mean we do need to import everything, and also the importing my CSV of all my data just to know what the variables look like. So let's do that. So what I would do, I would have two options. The first option would be maybe comment all of the rest of the code and run it in the terminal using just Python and the name of the file. But maybe a faster way of doing it would be having an IPython console open and having I do have to go first to the directory of the file. Otherwise, my imports are not going to work. So what I would do, it's basically open an IPython console and copy the lines of code that I want to run and hit enter, and it should run. But for me, that is a little bit too long. So what I do in Spyder, it's actually using code cells. So this is how we define one code cell in Spyder. And what a code cell allows me is to divide my code into sections that I can decide to run separately. So for instance, the import section, I don't imagine we having to import the libraries more than once. I imagine we only have to import them once, and then, I mean, we don't really want to make the imports a lot of times because it's not necessary. So what this allows me is just to run my code by sections. So I have one section for the imports, and I can just run this section, and then I can just start running the other sections without having to run that again. So let's do the same thing that we did. We just run two sections. And that's how I find code cells really useful to, if I want to iterate over only one portion of my code, I don't have to like select and paste that in the terminal. I just kind of do code cells, decide what sections I want to have, and then just use the cells to run them. Okay, the second task that I want to talk about is, how do I know the value of a variable? So here I run my weather data variable, which is a bunch of data of weather history. So what I would do if I was not using an IDE would probably be printed. So let's print the variable weather data. And we see that we don't really have access to the whole variable. Like it's too big, too long to kind of see it, the columns and the rows. And that's where I really find the variable explorer useful for Spyder. So the variable explorer provides me a viewer that's going to allow me to explore the variable fully. So I can see all the columns and all the rows of my variable. I don't really imagine me going through the 15,000 rows of this, but I would want to see in a general way, how does it look like? What columns does it have? And maybe do some comparisons just to make sure that my code is working. And that's how I find the variable explorer really useful to explore your information, especially when you have big data like this. You want to have something that provides an easy way to see your information. Okay, let's go to the fourth one. So the fourth one is, how do I handle different plots? So let's go back to my code. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my whole code just to generate a bunch of plots, and let's see what happens. So what you're going to see is that basically this generates a bunch of plots in different windows. And for me, it turns kind of overwhelming to have to browse between different windows to see my plots. And then we have the plots pane. So let's do the same thing. Let's run our code. And here we find exactly the same plots, but we have an advantage of having them all in the same place. I can switch between them easily with my arrows or with the toolbar here. And it's just gonna allow me to view them all and save them if I wanna maybe save them to copy them on a paper, or I can delete one of them if I want to generate it again, or I can just delete them all at once. And if I run it, it's just going to generate them all over again. So having the plots pane for me has become really useful, because I think that when you are kind of analyzing data, especially, you run the code, you generate a plot, and then you change your data and generate the plot again. And it kind of turns really handy to have something that lets you see all the progress of your plots, lets you generate as many plots as you want and have them in the same place and kind of handle them in an easier way. Let's go to my 4 task, get documentation. So when we're coding, we usually want to know where things come from, or maybe we forgot how to do something and we just go and find documentation. So let's try this here. So I have my function linear regression here, and let's imagine that I have no idea what it does and I want to like know what are the parameters and what is the output and everything. So if I don't have Spyder, what I would normally do would be first go to linear model and see where's it coming from. So I see my inputs, it's coming from scikit-learn. So I would most likely open, and some sort of web browser, and I would go to the scikit-learn documentation, and I don't know how to write it. So then I would most likely look for a linear model, and I would go to the linear regression here. And then I have all the information that I want in my web browser and the documentation, and then I have to go back to my code. So that can be avoided while using Spyder in the following way. If I go to my function here, linear regression, the only thing that I need to do is press Command I, and it automatically renders documentation right inside Spyder. So that's what the help pane is about. It allows you to have documentation embedded from the libraries and packages that you imported to display it in an easy way, in the sense that you don't really have to go and open a web browser and look for it somewhere else. You just have it right there, and you only have to, with one click, you can access to the documentation that you want. So that's also really useful for when you are writing your code and you don't want to like exit the things that you're doing to find your documentation. Yep, a lot of windows open. The next thing is how to improve your code style. So one of the things that we should do as scientists and developers is to write nice code and pretty and readable. So, I mean, at least me, I do pay attention a lot to the style. So I see that I am not really very familiar with Sublime. So I don't really know if it has like some sort of activating like code style warnings. I guess it does, but what I would do would be basically running pilings in my file. So let's just go again to my file.
Sorry, Juanita, I just want to tell you, you have 2 minutes left.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would just run Pyland on my file. And well, it takes a while, but it basically, oh yeah, I ran it in the wrong file. So it basically shows me all the warnings that I have but the advantage of Spyder is that you can see all the warnings as you write a code. The editor has this option that is amazing that shows you the warnings right when you're writing the code, so you don't actually have to run an analysis. You could if you want to, which I did, and it shows you exactly the same thing, and it has the advantage that you can just go to any line that you want to change with just one click. So I find that really useful. And the last thing that I wanted to tell you is that Spyder allows you to work on multiple processes. So if I'm running my code in my terminal, and I want to maybe do some other calculations, I would probably need to open a new console and run Python. But in Spyder, that doesn't happen. You have access to multiple consoles, and you can just run different processes in different consoles. And the funny thing and the interesting thing is that each console is associated to a variable explorer. So if I don't want to lose my variables and I just want to have more, I can just switch consoles and have a new list of variables. But if I return to my other one, I have my variables. And I guess that's what I wanted to show you today. I don't really have more time. That's the QR code for the webpage of Spyder in case you want to access it and yeah, kind of see the documentation or download it. But basically my idea today was to show you how do I improve my workflow using Spyder. And that's some simple tasks that I accomplished really fast because I do have Spyder. So happy Spydering is what we always say. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. If we do have time, I'm not sure.
No, actually we don't have time, but we thank you very much, Juanita, for your nice talk. And thank you very much, Spyder, for supporting this event. We really appreciate, and so thank you.